Hey viewers, this is Fernando from Sky-Fi Audio from Glen Rock, New Jersey. Today we're super excited to share with you guys a speaker that we've been long after, the JBL 4343 Studio Monitor. This is in the holy grail list of speakers to own as a vintage collector and audiophile. It's a massive speaker, it's super heavy, super large, built like a tank, and used professionally for decades. Not easy to find. We were able to finally score a set a few hours from here in pretty good survivor condition. The drivers are excellent. The cabinets are fairly good. So I thought I'd do a quick video, show you guys some of the features on this JBL monster, and share with you guys why we love the speaker and why it's definitely worth seeking after. So a little background, the 4343 Studio Monitor is not, in fact, the top of the line for the Studio Monitor from JBL from this era. That honor goes to 4350, which is essentially a very similar speaker in size, but with double woofers, which makes it about this wide. So highly unruly, barely able to fit in most listening rooms. So the 4343 is the one to seek after because it has tremendous bass in a much more manageable, and I say that with a little caveat, much more manageable enclosure size. So at 175 pounds, it is absolutely hard to move around. It's a two-man lift, if not a three-man lift. And the weight comes from a couple of things. One is the magnet structures. I believe that's a 14-pound magnet on the woofer. And again, several pounds on the mid woofer as well. Cabinet, 1 inch throughout, if not 3/4 of an inch. You can get a sense of it here. That's gonna measure at least, yeah, it's about 1 inch and a bit after the veneer. And then on the baffle, yeah, we're also measuring 1 inch on the baffle itself. I think it's 3/4 on the back, but overall, that sort of hardwood in such thickness contributes quite a bit. So the cabinet, the magnet structures, and obviously the cones or the metallic structures for the woofers and the horn itself is fairly large. So hard to move around, but it'll fit. If you've got a sizable mid-sized listening room, you can probably squeeze over your gear and fit these side by side. Just look at the height. I mean, those go well over my waist when compared to the size of this rack here. So also very impressive, and I love the blue. This is the quintessential JBL blue that is on their high-end studio monitors. If that's been painted or in black, I would probably pass on them because the blue's gorgeous. I'm going to go over the driver complements, some of the specifications. Let me show you a quick shot of where they all are, because then I'm going to go and show you the specifications. So from top to bottom, this is their super high range tweeter. I think this flows over 9,000 hertz, which is almost a super tweeter world. This is the compression horn driver. This is missing the lens, which we're going to have to source, a diffractor lens, which finishes off the speaker quite nicely. We're going to try it with and without the lens to see what sort of results we get. The mid-range, I think it's a 10-inch mid-range. I'm sorry, it's upper woofer. And then the woofer itself is below. Right here, I'll go over those specifications, and let's zoom in on the label here, model 4343. This one has a serial number of 12598. And then we've got the attenuators here for ultra high, high, and mid frequency. So we're able to sort of dial in the top half of the cabinet. So 4-way, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then there are ports for the lower woofers. So let's go over some of the specs and tell you why this works so well. So again, 176 pounds, a fairly sizable cabinet. Here I've downloaded from the internet some spec sheets to go over the highlights. First and foremost, and one of the most important qualifications for vintage speakers is efficiency. Sensitivity is rated at 93 dBs, which is ridiculously efficient. You could drive this with 10 watts and do some serious damage to your ears. Now, frequency response, it's fairly low considering when you compare it to modern speakers at 35 hertz, plus minus 3 dB. We like to use these speakers, vintage speakers, with preamps that have some sort of tone control, which is very common in the vintage world. Here we have a reissue of, for example, of the C22 Macintosh preamp. It has bass and treble controls, and I find these quintessentially important for vintage speakers to get just a little more oomph out of them. And boy, when we turn it up just maybe to the 2 position on these speakers of the 4, the bass just lights up. So there's really, the 35 hertz doesn't mean very much to us in real life. All right, following through, let's go over the drivers. So the lower woofer is a 15-inch woofer mounted in a 5.5 cubic foot enclosure. And it's evident when you look at the baffle what that means. Here we see a cutoff here. So I suspect that the enclosure for the lower woofer is separate from the enclosure from the mid woofer. And you can see some evidence of that. So these ports are only for this woofer. This one is probably not ported. All right, so the 15-inch low woofer, 13-pound magnetic assembly using an Alnico 5 magnet, which is crazy. That's probably where we get such great bass response out of this. And it has a 4-inch voice coil on that 15-inch woofer, you know, so it's a sizable voice coil for that. Moving on to the mid-range or upper bass, that's a 10-inch driver, which is what you would find for lower bass on a lot of speakers. A 3-inch edge-wound copper ribbon voice coil, which is super powerful magnet of 10,000 Gauss. So remove your watch. If you like to wear high-end watches, you might not want to wear one around this speaker, unless maybe it's a Rolex Milgauss, which has protection for such external forces. Moving on to the compression driver. So compression driver is going to be found in here. So this would have a fairly large horn structure behind it, and the magnet is probably sitting somewhere near the back of the cabinet. So that has a 10-pound Alnico 5 magnet as well, and a ring of pure silver deposit in the circumference of the pole piece, maintaining uniform impedance. So this is a very highly regarded compression driver for that. And then moving on to the ultra high frequency transducer. So that is this guy right here. 3.5-pound magnet on that guy with a 1 3/4-inch edge wound aluminum ribbon voice coil. It's important to note that the cabinet design allows you to mirror image the set. So if you see the super high frequency tweeter can be field mounted either on the right position or the left position just by removing these screws, so that you could potentially have a mirrored set. You can choose whether you want it on the outside, as we've got it mounted here. Here you see the outside is for the super high tweeter, or you can mount it on the inside, or you could reverse them. So that'll give you a little bit wider or narrower soundstage depending on what your setup is. If you have a very large equipment rack in the middle and you want to separate the speaker a bit more, but you don't want to go that wide with the soundstage, you would mount the tweeters on the inside. So neat feature, not found in many studio monitors, but it's great that we have that option here. All right, so let me go over the driver complement. So it looks like on the woofer it's a 2213. Just give me a second. So it's a 2213 woofer, a 2121 for the mid woofer. The horn is a 2308, or the compression driver here, 2308, 2307, and 2420. So that's the horn, the compression driver, and then the diffuser lens. And then for the super high tweeter, it is a 2405. And here is a great picture describing the part numbers associated with each of the drivers. Let me point out the horn here. So it's composed of the horn driver, which is this guy, the horn itself, and then the diffuser lens. That's why we have 3 part numbers for that particular assembly. This came from a cool Japanese website. Huge following in Asia for these JBL speakers. That's why they almost all end up. Another reference here to the 93 dBs, runs at 8 ohms for your impedance. And then the channel dividing network, there's some options here. I'll go over what the crossovers are capable of doing. So total dimensions, 41 inches tall by 25 inches wide by 17 and an eighth inches deep. A little discrepancy in shipping weight, or at least finish weight, between these two manuals, but you can just expect it to be close to 200 pounds. That's probably the safest bet. Now let's talk about the crossover, which is kind of neat as well. Oh, here's another great picture of the assemblies. So the crossover is interesting because it has the ability to, it has two configurations. Let's see if you can see here, but if you're going to drive it with just a straight amplifier, you're going to connect it to, I guess, either of the terminals, actually the lower terminal. And there's a switch here to let you choose between internal crossover and external crossover. So if you flip this over, you're essentially bypassing the crossover completely, and then you would need some sort of active crossover and a pair of amplifiers to drive a single speaker. We're going to be playing with that pretty soon. We've got a lot of great active crossovers in place, including an old tube Luxman. Don't see where that ended up. Yeah, it's over there. We've got this great piece right here that we're going to play with. And then probably hook up a pair of these wonderful Jadi 845 monoblock amplifiers. So we're going to pull 4 of these guys out of storage, set them up here on the floor right between the two JBLs, and put them on an active crossover. So that should be a pretty neat test. For now, we're running it off of MC452 that we've got that just came in from a client, just for ease and purpose of this demo. I would not recommend that amplifier with this speaker. I'd recommend obviously a tube amplifier and preferably monoblocks. All right, let me go over. Here's the top page of that brochure. Pretty cool stuff. I wish we had the original brochure or the manual on these. If you've got access to one of them, please let us know. We'd love to buy it. All right, I think that covers everything for the specs. Let's go back to my notes. All right, yeah, that covers everything. I'm not going to go into a lengthy demo of the speakers. I'm just going to turn up the volume a little bit. You know how YouTube is with copyright violations. So let me see if I can demo a little bit of what. One last thing to cover. Here we have the original grills that go with these units. It's also finished in like a really nice, I don't know if it's faded black or it looks like a navy blue almost. The camera's not doing justice, but it does definitely have a blue tint to it. And you'll see the thickness of this grill covers is quite large. It's probably 2.5, if not 3 inches deep. And that is in order to accommodate the lens that would be here, the diffuser lens that would Velcro mount onto here. So pretty sizable wood frame grill. Unfortunately, it's attached with Velcro, which is not ideal. But I don't know why anyone would ever put the grills on these beautiful things. All right, so here it is, the 4343 studio monitor from JBL, brought to you by Sky-Fi Audio. Please visit us online. We've got a crazy array of equipment. I don't know if you got a quick shot of our shop, but it is filled with some really neat vintage equipment, some modern. Here you see some luminaires, some audio research gear. It's a nice mix of vintage and somewhat modern equipment. And we've got the best of the best. I mean, look at this. It's a original C22 with an MC240 on it. So the best from Macintosh. Here's the most collectible from Luxman. There's a super rare audio research amplifier tube, the 150. And our reference cello system. This is found a new home, so that's going to be leaving pretty soon. And we'll put the JBLs in place there so that we can kind of build a custom system for them. And there's a wall of Macintosh, what we call it. All right, well, thanks everybody for watching. Please subscribe to our channel. It'll keep us motivated to keep bringing you videos such as this one. And skyfiaudio.com is our website. Thanks for watching, viewers.